I'm Dr. Rabbi Larry Hirsch. Stay tuned. Taped with Rabbi Doug is up next.
Go to watch Rabbi Doug on the TV tonight.
Forget about the network programs. Forget about all the great cable shows. There's only one thing for me on Mondays and Tuesday nights. Rabbi Doug.
We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna watch Rabbi Doug. Yeah, we're gonna watch Rabbi Doug on your TV tonight.
Shalom and welcome to Taped with Rabbi Doug. It is once again a great pleasure and honor to welcome back from the land of Israel to the Chicago area, Dr. Rabbi Larry Hirsch. Welcome to the show and thanks for being back again. I know you're in town doing emergency room work before you return to Israel, so I'm glad you were able to take some time to be with us again. For those of you that don't know Dr. Hirsch, he is not only our medical expert, he is our Israel political expert, and he's with us often, thank God, because he's able to get back to the States often to visit his mother who lives in Skokie and to put in a little extra work in his retirement. And we're glad to have him back. And tell me, just to start, we are taping now. It is the end of the fall, the beginning of the winter, the end of fall, and we are in the midst of a lot of political things going on, a lot of changes in the environment, not only with the summit that took place of the nations, but also in the temperature changing. You know, we went from just a couple of weeks ago being in the 70s to being in the 40s, but today it hit 50s, and that's kind of a change as well. Tell me a little bit about what you know about this summit that took place. What number summit was it?
26.
26th summit for talking about climate change. And I still don't understand the title of the summit or anything like that, but we know it was big news here because Biden, president, went to the summit, and people from all over the world were there. What was the value of this, and what do you think came out of it that was for the good, in your opinion?
Okay, well, for the good is that people are concerned about the environment. And
is it global warming only? What really is it about?
It's mainly global warming, but what seems to be affecting global warming is the environment, pollution, and just human beings, many billions of them living on the face of the earth. Now, I'm a physician. I am not a climate expert, and I will give you my take on it, and as a non-climate scientist, but I do have a degree in chemistry, and medicine is a very scientific art. I look at basically results, and when I can read fairly advanced research on COVID, for example, the present epidemic, and understand what's going on. I cannot do that. I'm a layman like everybody else when it comes to climate, but I can look at results. And I think if someone who's a layman takes what I think should be his approach to COVID, to the climate, I think he would be much better off. Obviously, there's a lot of laymen who believe a lot of really nonsensical things about COVID. I mean, Israel is the same as the United States of America. We've got people who believe still, after more than a year and a half, 2 years since it started in China, there's no such thing as COVID, there's no such thing as an epidemic. The vaccines are harmful. I had one lady, I don't know if I told you this in the summer when we last taped, I get an email from a friend, do something about this request. Stern College is having a 50th anniversary reunion in Yerushalayim in August. And this was mid-August, and this woman is writing to her friend where I live in Beit El, 20 minutes north of Yerushalayim, writing, what do I do about the reunion? Me and my husband and I are not vaccinated. I go, well, if the people at the reunion are willing to, put up with the fact that you're not vaccinated, social distance, 6 feet, 2 meters, and a mask should take care of it. She goes, no, doctor, you don't understand. It's not we're a danger to them. They're a danger to us. Those vaccinated people are radiating mRNA. And after I laughed for a while and laughed with my wife and told the joke to a fairly well-known Chicago infectious disease guy, and we laughed about it, people believe utter nonsense. And I think the only way a layman can really get into the COVID and the climate is look at the results. What are the results? If the results are, I believe there are right now 5 million people worldwide that are accounted for dead from COVID. And there's 8,100 some Israelis, there's 800,000 Americans, something like that. So the results are that there's a killer virus out there. And anybody who believes the opposite, and a lot of even very religious Jews with big beards have come out on the internet
saying those things,
saying that there's no such thing. And it's a shame that Rabbanim, some of them with very famous last names on the East Coast, some from one Makubal from Israel with a big long gray beard. There's no such thing as the Makubal, no such thing as Corona, and the East Coast Rabbanim coming out with the vaccine's dangerous. Well, the vaccine's not dangerous. We've got research on the vaccine, Thompson, New England Journal, July 15th. They believe I took 4,000 medical personnel, divided them vaccinated, non-vaccinated. Turned out the vaccinated kept the virus. When they got infected, they cleared the virus faster. 75% of them cleared the virus within 7 days or less. The non-vaccinated, 72% took 8 days and longer, up to weeks to clear the virus. So it's clear the virus stays less long.
If they survived it.
If they survived it. And the people who were vaccinated had 40% less virus, total viral load.
Well,
so
right here in this community, people, as of the last couple of weeks, have died of COVID. And most of them obviously were not vaccinated. But it's a big issue still today.
So look at the results in Israel. We had the third wave, January 24th to March 15th. The hospitals were overrun. Yerushalayim, the only hospitals who took a 1,000-bed Hadassah and Kerem, 800 bed, I believe, Shaarei Tzedek. No more beds. There were no more beds to be had. We had to ship everybody to Tel Aviv and elsewhere. We were bombed, and then the vaccine, which by us started to be given around December 15th, kicked in. Okay, so those are the results. The vaccine kicked in. By March 15th, it plummeted to the point where on June 10th, Netanyahu had already, the end of April, no mass outside, then no mass inside. We went to theater, we went to concerts, and he was about to open up tourism.
Then the
on
Delta
July
variant.
1st.
Then the Delta variant.
No,
came.
not then the Delta variant came. What came first was a worse virus than that called Naftali Bennett, the man with 6 seats. On June 13th, he became prime minister. After on June 10th, Netanyahu announced we're opening up the country for July 1st for tourists, which meant a whole tourist season with filled hotels, restaurants, entertainment, where the tour guides are working, where the taxi cab drivers, the airlines, everybody's got work, and that's 6% of your GNP. All of a sudden, Bennett goes, he's got a new Ministry of Health, Horowitz, Mr. Horror, real Horowitz, says we're going to study it. So they canceled the opening up of the tourism for July 1st. They still were studying it by the time August 1st, when what you call the Delta variant, the Indian variant, Delta variant kicked in August 1st, and that was there for 2 months. August, September were horrible, and they started giving the booster shot the end of July, the beginning of August. I got my third shot August 4th, and again, it took 2 months. By October 15th, everything was back to normal. So instead of filled hospital beds again, doctors overworked. We had to put on spacesuits, basically, work for 3-4 hours.
PPE.
You're boiling, yes, but basically what people look at as spacesuits. You're boiling hot, you get out of it in 3-4 hours and go to the washroom, eat something and take a shower because you're soaked, and then go back and do it again for another 3-4 hours. 90% of those people in August and September and the beginning of October were, and presently, unvaccinated. I mean, we had horror stories. And so it took another 2 months, just the same way, from mid-December to mid-March, and then what we call our third wave was over by August 1st, September, and then by mid-October, our fourth wave was basically over. We went from nearly 1,000 ICU sick COVID patients. Right now, I think there's 123 intubated patients. It's over. And it's all due to the vaccine. So look at the results, is what I'm saying. If you're a layman, just keep an open mind. Look at the results. The virus killed people, a lot of people. Put people on ECMO. I mean, there's a lot of moral problems here. I mean, the unvaxxed, I'll say something controversial, by perpetuating stubbornly their own infantile delusions. The vaccine people are dangerous, they're radiating mRNA, they're going to drop dead of side effects in 5 years. To that I would say, if the Cossacks are banging at your door, Tevye the milkman and Anatevka are about to be burned, don't sweat that the Russian Revolution is coming in 15 years. I mean, what is that? You've got danger right at the door. Look at the results. People are dying, get your vaccine. And it's proven to work, okay? So that's what you can do for that. So I would go, and one last little bit of Musar
Sure.
to the unvaccinated, which is, we had our Ministry of Health came out with some nonsense. Well, we take care of drunks, and we take care of smokers. So it's the same thing with the unvaccinated. It certainly is not. Drunks have a physical addiction. I mean, Rav Aaron Soloveitchik used to say, many problems have a layman's answer and a lumdisha, a rabbinical, Talmudical, Torah-reasoned answer. The layman's answer to the unvaccinated is it's a lot of chutzpah. You're refusing to be taken care of. You're not, in many cases, not even agreeing that there is an epidemic. That's a lot of chutzpah for us to work our butts off and save your life when you suddenly get sick, to the point where you've taken up all the ICU beds. And there was a terrible case where Tzfat had you heard this case? Myocardial infarction, heart attack patient. They wanted to send him to the last ECMO bed, last ECMO machine in Hadassah in Cairo. So we accepted him. They put him in the air. Who shows up right then? An unvaxxed corona patient, and he got the ECMO because he needed it right then and there. The guy flew over, took 20, 25 minutes, whatever the flight was, and he died because there was no more ECMO machine. So you've got all kinds, I will say something else that, in my opinion, if a minister of health had guts and people are refusing preventive therapy, enough is enough. You've fatigued the medical personnel. You've bankrupted the healthcare system. You've taken up all the beds. 90% of the beds, like I said, were unvaxxed corona patients. Okay, they're 10% of the population. I'll set up medical Army field hospitals for you. You get 10% of the ECMO machines. You get 10% of the ventilators. And Shalom Al Yisrael, may God help you, but you can't do that to the rest of society with your irresponsible behavior. That's the layman's chutzpah answer. The Lumdish answer is these guys, the drunks, the smokers, they've got an addiction. I've heard a million, this was the Ministry of Health, PhD guys, saying we take care of the smokers. Yeah, well, I'm a practicing physician. We've all heard as practicing physicians, Doc, I've quit smoking 6 times already. And but 6 months ago, there was a lot of pressure at work. And to calm my nerves, the only thing I could do was the nicotine in the cigarette. Now that's a physical addiction. That's what's called the Yetzer Hara. And it's a lot different than people who refuse to grow up in infantile behavior, don't look at the results. So that's what I'm saying for COVID, if you're a layman. So now let's look at the climate thing. Look at the results. Unfortunately, I'll preface it by saying I'm certainly willing to sort my garbage and do it and buy a low pollution car, even if it's eventually going to be a very expensive electric car. Fine, and they're producing them, but I think worldwide there's still less than 2% of the total number of cars. Okay, so that's reasonable, but look at the results. The United States of America was energy independent. People in the coal fields in Kentucky and West Virginia were working. People in the oil fields from Pennsylvania to out west, as far as California, were working. And now you've shut down, with your President Biden administration, your pipelines. You've shut down the coal industry. And look at the results. I mean, I'm a practicing physician. I've worked in West Virginia. I've worked Bluefield, West Virginia, a lot. Between 1991 and 2010, I went in and out of there. They're Jews, actually. The Jewish Federation back in 91 had a list of 36 Jewish families in the area. They used to have an Orthodox shul, but now it's been reformed since 91. That was the first time I was there, and the last time 2010. Wow. So Bluefield, West Virginia, all through eastern Kentucky, took care of 11-year-old one morning, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I was starting a day shift, and what is this? He's got cirrhotic numbers, cirrhosis of the liver numbers. So his family doc came in about 8 o'clock and said, "Doc, you're a big city guy from Chicago. You don't get it. His father's an unemployed coal miner." And this kid has been hitting the still for the last 5 years. He shot his liver by age 11.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so there's the same thing out west with Indians, Apache Indians in Arizona. Same idea. They're Americans. So right now, look at the results. Is America working? Is America, paying through the nose for oil? Is America energy independent?
Look at the price, how price of oil has gone up, gasoline prices have gone up.
And all that being said, there's the other end. Because not only does coal being burned to generate electricity dirty the air, look at the results. Also, those communities out there in West Virginia and Kentucky have trouble. The coal mine puts coal material into the drinking water and into the farm water. It puts, there's all kinds of rusty mine equipment down under the ground, puts all these lousy chemicals, and there's been major lawsuits involved. So there's two ends to it. The Gemara talks about it. Going back, 1,1600 years, talking about the Mishnah, even longer, keeping, the copper business outside the city. And it doesn't prohibit it. There's no Easter, but you have to do it ethically, safely. I think you have to look at the results. I will look at Israel's involvement with COP26. I think we had 140 people going. I think we were the second biggest delegation. Israel is not the second biggest country in the world.
No, it's
I
not.
mean, we've got big polluters, United States, Russia, China, big areas, and little Israel sent the second biggest delegation. There was a lot of hoo-ha to cover over the present government's deep problems inside the country. So how do you do it? Make headlines for a week somewhere else in Glasgow, and get people's minds off the political problems inside the country, and they are major. And the problems of having a character, I love him, that he's got to keep on his head and he keeps Shabbos publicly, but he's only got 6 people behind him, and he's made some very bad deals. But as far as climate goes, again, look at the results. I will tell you two little stories. One, I visited my brother coming out from Israel. I was working in Bluefield, West Virginia.
Brother in Los Angeles?
Yeah, brother in Los Angeles. Went to visit him. At the time, he had, I'm taking it back, it was 93. At the time, he had a 10-year-old kid who was in day school. And I go, what's the biggest problems of the age? This was right after, robbing in Paris and the Oslo Agreement. What's the biggest problem of the age? Which did not create peace in Israel and created all kinds of problems and terror. And he says, obviously, the 10-year-old kid had learned in day school, the biggest problem of the age, the environment. I was flabbergasted. This is a LA day school. And then, it's about, I'd say, 7-8 years ago, we, summer vacation, this year we were 24 Hirsches and descendants with all kinds of different last names. So we took as many as we could also, 7-8 years ago, up to the Golan. My kid number 5 makes fun of me. He says, people actually live here, Abba. This isn't what you think is vacation land. But we've been up there every summer since 1990. And we were there even as a family in a sabbatical year in '83. So we went to the Banyas. Boiling hot summer day, July or August. We're going to go into the water like we've done for years. And there's a forest preserve guard there, and forest ranger type. And he goes, you can't go in the water. I go, why can't we go in the water? Oh, take a look. There's some signs over there. And it turns out there was a 2-millimeter long fish that they had found that possibly its numbers was being affected by what they claimed was the number of people jumping in the water in the Banyas, which is a main source, one of the main sources of the Jordan. It's very nice, watery, the whole preserve there. Because of the negative impact of this 2-millimeter fish, no more going in the water. So we got into a little trouble. We had just come from the Kinneret, and we still had these, tubes, these super squirter things. And I grabbed about a dozen of them and gave them all the kids and grandkids, and they're squirting each other. And the ranger comes by and goes, "What are you doing? You can't do that." I go, "Look." In Hebrew, I go, "Look at your sign. It says you can't go in the water. It doesn't say anything about taking the water out." But the whole point of that story is, again, look at the results. Who's more important? Thousands of tourists, including in Israel tourists, coming and enjoying the Banyas, or this 2-millimeter fish, which somehow, from time immemorial and for decades, was surviving up to then, with people being
Going
in the water. So I really don't quite buy it, but that's what it is. It's people and coal miners and oil people and all the people who work pipelines and all this kind of stuff. I mean, yes, solar energy is cheaper. I would never after Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island and all the Japanese disasters, advocate nuclear power, which they're advocating. Solar power and wind power might be able to do some of it. I mean, I don't know. Some people have sent me all kinds of wild emails and Facebooks that Bill Gates and the federal government are buying up millions of acres out west of farmland, Nebraska and Iowa, and apparently they're going to go from corn farms to solar farms. Maybe, you know,
What happens?
and we'll see what happens. But that's my take, that a layman, just look at the results, both with COVID, so you can make up your mind. And I'm just as big a layman when it comes to climate. And I remain skeptical. These people are too extremists. You know, and I'm always worried about extremists, whether it's extremist Jewish religious people, religious fundamentalists of all kinds, or this has become, you know, I don't trust some 16-year-old, now she's 17 or 18, from Sweden, is it? The Thurnberg or whatever. So that's my take on that. Israel's politics, if you wanted to get into it, is as we stand before Hanukkah, and the Hanukkah story is Jew against Jew. Hellenist Jew, and if you look in the dictionary, Hellenist is still a Jew. It's Jew, and that's what's still going on in Israeli politics. But this one is very personal. You know, I think I talked about it on one of your shows before. Evan Hamach Lekot, King Saul in Shmuel Aleph, Samuel 1, chapter 23, Kaf Gimel, has David cornered. He can finish him off. So a miracle happens, God sends a malach. Now whether malach is an angel or messenger, comes to King Saul, the Philistines are attacking, and Saul has a deep problem. The machlokas, or dispute, is an internal dispute. Do I go finish off David, who's my big enemy, or do I finish off the Philistines and save the country? He did the right thing. King Saul saves the country and lets David go. And who becomes David HaMelech. Well, that's not what happens here. All this is simply petty personal politics. The Bennett has 6, and Sar, who says, I can't get along with Netanyahu, he's got another 6 or something, and Lieberman has 8. And all for petty politics. They made a deal with an Arab, Mansour Abbas, who runs the Ram, R-A apostrophe A-M party, made a deal with him, giving him, it's unbelievable, 50 billion shekels over the lifetime of this coalition agreement of 4 years to help out the Arabs, mainly down in the Negev, to legalize all this land grab by Arab Bedouin all through the Negev. Had that much money been given to the Haredim, you would have heard screaming and yelling, Haredi blackmail, kfiyat datit, religious coercion, and that's where we have a problem in Israel right now. A big problem with this government.
Will there be, in your opinion, a change of government when elections come up, if they're supposed to come up?
At least half and maybe more of Bennett's supporters would vote for the Likud, because they're not gonna, they were flim-flam. They were told he's right wing, but you're not right wing if you're giving money and lands to anti-Zionist Arabs.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks for stopping in. I have so many questions I wanted to ask you, but our time has run out, so we'll do it on the next time that you're here. I want to thank all of you for being with us. Remember, you can check out our website, www.tvrabbi.com. You can also see former shows on the web. If you want to email Dr. Rabbi Hirsch or me, info@tvrabbi.com. I'll forward it to him. I know he'll get back to you. Hope to see you next time right here on Taped with Rabbi Doug. Shalom, everyone.
This has been a Taped with Rabbi Doug production.